right of the people to keep and wear orange shall not be infringed. Welcome to the Cuse Militia Podcast with those two unapologetically biased, orange-blooded homers, Sean and Joe. Give us a like on Facebook at Cuse Militia Podcast and follow on Twitter at Cuse Militia.
All right, what's up, Cuse Nation? Thanks for tuning in to the Cuse Militia Podcast with Sean and Joe. If you like it, please share it, subscribe. That always helps. Joe, what's up, brother?
What's going on, Sean?
Not a whole lot. We do have some good news to share. I know it's been I guess it's been about a month since we've been back, and we said 2 weeks, so apologize about that. There just hasn't been a ton. There just hasn't been a ton of news, so...
No,
today,
work schedule,
Yeah, work schedule, and it's summertime, so there's other things going on. But today we're going to talk about the one-and-done rule. We're going to talk about player compensation. Joe has got a rundown of some of the new recruits for the class of 2019.
Yes, sir. 6 and 12 days.
Oh, jeez, I'm crow. Here we go. So this guy wishing away the summer, just like that. Poof. He wants football. Me, I'm good. I can wait. I got Boeheim's Army coming up. I have a really good feeling about Boeheim's Army.
You got a pool.
I got the pool. I got the grill. I got the beer. I mean, what the hell, And there's sunshine. So, but before we do all that, okay, let's real quick. When we started this podcast a year and a half ago, we said we'd do this thing. I've said this before, and I know I sound like a broken record probably to some of you who have listened since the beginning, but we said we'd do it regardless if anybody listened or not because we just love talking about Syracuse basketball and football. Well, as it turns out, people actually listen. Believe it or not, people actually listen. Besides our parents.
That was just our downloads.
Yeah, right. Us
Family
listening to
friends.
ourselves. But so... Since a year and a half ago, we've grown an audience on social media. We're starting to get even people on Twitter and stuff without doing a whole lot of tweeting because it's really not up our alley. But we do it more during games and stuff. But anyway, we had a great basketball season, and we've been picked up by ArmchairAllAmericans.com. Armchair is a sports media company. They're similar to 247 Sports, SB Nation, and Barstool. CEO Andrew Stevens and his team started it in 2015. They're based out of Baton Rouge. And they're dedicated to giving the fans for each team the best coverage possible in their writings and in their audio. They've picked the most passionate fans to cover each team. So Joe and I had been given the opportunity to represent the Orange for Armchair All-Americans, and they want to help us grow our audience. We want to help them grow theirs. So nothing will change with the show. It's mine and Joe's show. It's always going to be the same. We're always just going to be working to improve it. There's no one pulling the strings. Armchair's not going to micromanage us. We still do what we want. So we want to thank Andrew and his team over there for the opportunity. And we're
listeners.
Yeah, trying to get new listenership. And Armchair is hopefully going to be a website that we can refer you to for recruiting news, that we can refer you to for, if you're like us, you like to have a lot of different options when it comes to coverage of anything. I mean, whether it be sports, politics, anything. You can't have enough resources.
No, but not only that, this is just it's one team. There's NBA, baseball, football.
Yeah, and you can join. You put in your username, email, and password. That's it. And you can create your profile. Your profile will allow you to pick the teams that you follow. And, you can get your information that way, too, to, customize it. So
yes, sir.
When we get, some official reads and stuff, we'll be sharing that. But so if you listen on iTunes right now, it'll say, published by, at the bottom it should say Armchair All-Americans. So we're under their banner now, and we thank them. So enough of that, okay?
Yes, let's make them proud.
Yeah. And Joe, Joe needs to get his orientation done. And once Joe gets his orientation done, we'll actually be there.
All right. Enough of that, right? Yeah, he said.
Jesus, girl, he's only had a week. All right.
It's a long week.
Let's start with the one and done rule. Now, this is a particularly stupid rule. It is not of the NCAA, though. It is of the NBA, and there's nothing really the NCAA can do about it except for counter it and make it more of a pain in the ass for the NBA.
Right.
So this is the rule that says you have to play at least a year of college ball to be eligible for the draft.
No, 1 year removed from high school.
Right, exactly. But if you don't, typically if you don't enter, you can do it. What's his name? Baisley's doing, but I don't.
No, you can do that. You can go overseas, and there's a couple guys, Brandon Jennings and Emmanuel Moutier. They went overseas and played.
You take the spotlight off yourself, though, when you do things like that, kind of.
Well, at that point, at that age, March Madness and college basketball over in the United States with the NBA and everything. That's the biggest platform. No one watches the G League, and no one watches, basketball overseas. So it's basically the best platform that you can go to. The only thing is you're not making money, and if you don't think that you're going to go for 4 years, you probably don't really value the school time that much anyway. You know what I mean? So,
right.
It's tough.
You're not going to, John Calipari's made a living out of this.
Right.
You're not going to Kansas or, some of these other places even to get, a modern education and get a degree.
No, they're not going into it thinking they're going to graduate in 3 or 4 years. They're thinking that they're going to be in the NBA or 1 or 2. And then if they choose to go and get their degree afterwards, then that's on them. But talking about kids that they're looking to maximize the years that they can make money playing basketball because Father Time's undefeated. So the longer you wait.
Yeah.
So can't blame them.
The commission, who's headed by Condoleezza Rice, they make recommendations like encouraging athletes to complete their degrees. Yeah, okay, whatever. They're going to let undrafted players maybe return to school without cost, if it doesn't work out, that they can still come back to school and get their diplomas cost-free.
Right.
They advocate a path to the pros for athletes who don't really care about college. They didn't give any details about that. But what I was interested in was their counter to the rule itself. And the counter to the rule itself is, the commission says, proposing making freshmen ineligible, period, to play. Now, the thing about that is, well, how would you do that? How do you know so-and-so is a one-and-done player? Are you going to blanket every freshman for a year, basically redshirt every freshman for a year? That is absolutely absurd.
Well, back in the day, they used to do that. They used to have JV teams and varsity teams, and there was, if I remember, freshmen couldn't play on the varsity squad. That's taking a step backwards, like way, way back in time.
Yeah, there's a reason that they don't do that anymore either.
Right. Well, there's also a reason why the NBA made that rule, too, Well,
they don't want an influx of... They don't want a ton of these young players entering the league. But here's my thing about that.
But then you have the LeBron James that comes along, and the Kevin Garnett that comes along. There's so many players that have, stayed or went straight to the NBA, and they were very successful. So there are some players where it's hard to deny. But if you open up that door, then you have those egos that think that they can make it, and it can ruin the NBA. So it's a give and a take.
Here's the other thing about that. You're right. It's a give and a take. And it's also, if someone thinks they can do it and they don't end up making it, then, that's on them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, imagine if LeBron had to go to college for a year. Like that. That's an automatic championship, almost like Carmelo.
Yeah,
when you go back and look at it, Carmelo is not the type of player that's going to win an NBA championship. But he was, in all intents and purposes, a straight to the NBA player. He could have easily done it.
Oh,
but he dominated college basketball as a freshman. So that's what LeBron would have done. There's players that can do it, but the problem is when they don't have the rule, too many players go into the draft because they just want to try to make money.
Right, but Joe, only so many of them are going to get drafted.
Right.
So what if the NCAA was like, okay, maybe the players that don't get drafted, can still be eligible. Maybe that's what they're talking about, advocating a path for the pros.
That's why they're putting all the money in the G League now.
Yeah, I know the G League. Yeah, I know. I get it. And there's a lot of.
I almost feel like Baisley's their poster boy.
No, he absolutely
because they are putting money in it, and obviously, the kids going to college isn't working because now you got a bunch of guys that are just going there for 1 year. They're taking money. They're doing things on the side, and then they go to the NBA and they don't care about what happens to the schools. So, right. I mean, you would like to think that the NCAA and the NBA would be able to come together and come together and compromise and try to figure out what's best for both.
What if kids that didn't get drafted in the NBA coming out of high school, what if they were still eligible to go back in to be recruited? There's a strategy there for schools to save scholarships. I mean, what's the big deal? I don't understand. Can you give me a reason that doesn't make sense?
Not really.
I mean, so what's the big deal? So you're not going to get the influx. You are going to get it in the draft. And the combine too is invite only. Is it not? I mean, you can't just show up at a combine. You have to be invited.
No, yeah, it's invite only.
Okay. So it's not making any the idea that there's going to be an influx of young players is going to be the same regardless. The number's going to be the same. If they get drafted, they get drafted. If they don't, they don't. Why can't they be eligible for a scholarship then? So that's my point. The NCAA though, the commission, we talked up locking up scholarships, are making freshmen ineligible. The other thing that we're talking about is locking up a student's scholarship for 3 or 4 years to punish coaches for recruiting one and dones. But here's the thing again, how is it?
What do you mean lock their scholarships for 3 or 4 years? You're talking about even when they leave, then their scholarship still stands.
Right, and you can't, it doesn't become available.
Hurt the depth.
Right, exactly. So, you
can't make that rule if you're going to force kids to go to college. Because then some teams got to take them.
What they're doing, right, I understand, but that's not to punish anybody but the schools and the coaches for recruiting a one-and-done. Well, let's say you don't know you have a one-and-done.
Or let's say that nobody recruits the one-and-done, then what? The kid just doesn't go to school and he's got to sit out a year without playing basketball, or he's forced to go do...
Or he's got to go to the G League, or like you said, he's got to go overseas. See, when you have these big organizations creating counteractive, they're trying to counter a problem, they're going to create more problems. You got the NBA. The NBA's kind of created a little bit of a problem with the one and done. Well, now you got the NCAA trying to counter that problem by making these other rules. Now you're creating more problems.
No, every time you fix something, usually there's something that's unforeseen that becomes another problem. So
exactly. Generally, when you fix things, when you have a system that works, when you try to tweak it and you think you're fixing it, most of the time you do more harm than good. And I'm afraid that Condoleezza Rice and her crew on the NCAA commission, frankly, they would just be opening a can of worms with all this stuff. It's kind of up to the NBA. And like you said, they kind of have to work together to, maybe come up with some kind of compromise. I think what I think what I said is the best idea. Okay. Right. You let them come back and get a scholarship. Let them go to the draft after high school. If they get invited to the combine, let it happen, and let it happen naturally. And wherever everything lands, it lands. And we just, everybody take a deep freaking breath and relax.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that there's certain things that could hurt the NCAA. I don't want to say ruin, but if the
they're
NBA
doing a good
does
job
decide
of themselves of hurting their own image. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but if the NBA can find the funding, or if they can put more money into raising salaries for the G League, maybe moving them to bigger cities, and
you got to have the fan base is the thing. I think with that, it's just not. It's not something that's caught on yet.
No, you're right. But if you raise that salary, then NCAAs, if they're not careful, they could come up with a rule that's going to shoot themselves in the foot. Because before we've talked about, make them if they go to college, then they have to play for 2 years. Well, all that's going to do for anybody that is good enough is just going to force them to go somewhere else. So now you're going to have anybody that thinks that they're either someone that can go straight from high school or a one and done are going to go to this league and make money, and then they're going to end up going to the draft instead of going 2 years to college. And I think it's going to end up weakening basically the product of NCAA if they do that. So they got to be careful.
All right, and again, we're talking about implementing more rules instead of kind of eliminating some. You know,
and the whole thing that kills me is that both these sides really aren't showing, just like the NCAA cares about the students, right?
Neither one of them have the best interest of the kid.
Of the kids, exactly, and that's the whole point. Is that they're making all these rules, which is making it 100% harder for these kids to figure out what they want to do.
Absolutely.
You know, they're just trying to play basketball and then play pro and make some money. You know.
Yeah.
So they got to come together and work together to have, that kind of compromise and so that there's kids that are more prepared for when they do go to the NBA, and be able to figure out and kind of vet which kids are actually good enough to go to the NBA and vice versa.
And the other thing too is if they would just let this kind of go with the flow a little bit, I think you would see a pattern maybe of, a failure rate. Statistics are going to come out. People are going to be aware of that stuff. Maybe sometimes they're going to be more cautious instead of, even if they do get drafted, maybe they get bumped down to the G League and they're like, well, damn, Well,
there's got to be some kind of system to where like you said, like a combine, right? You have to get invited to go to the combine. Just like if you want to be at the draft in the green room, and walk out on stage when your name gets called, like that's an invitation. So they got to figure out a way to where they can say, okay, you have to have an invitation to go to the draft, which means there's got to be some type of system where these teams can look at these players and see if they're ready for the NBA or not, and come out and say, hey, and save them from themselves, basically.
Well, yeah,
and say you can only go to the draft if you get an invitation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's another good idea. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, there's certain things where you can go to get the ball rolling, but the bottom line is you can't you can't be thinking about the dollar, which both these, obviously NBA and NCAA are. They don't care about the kids. So
no, they don't. And if they did, all the corruption that you got going on, it wouldn't be happening. I mean, let's be honest. And this brings me into the player compensation. Do you want to wrap up anything on the one and done?
No, we're good.
Okay,
it's a pretty good segue.
Player compensation is something that's, I don't see. It's touchy. It is touchy, but there's very
touche.
There's you're touchy. Joe's got a shirt on now. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, no problem, man. It was hot.
There's certain things you can do that will allow these kids freedom to make money without harming them academically or
hurting the budget
of the school. And we've talked about this before. One of them is being able to sell their name and likeness, creating an eBay or Amazon site. And this doesn't cost them anything. It's not crooked. They got to send out some packages, let them sign some hero cards or 8x10s or jerseys or whatever. Bring back NCAA basketball, EA Sports, NCAA football. Bring it back. Give these kids a cut. Who cares? How does this hurt the school? That's so stupid to me. It takes no money out of the school because they're using the NCAA logo and name. I mean, I know. How much money do you think the NCAA was making off of that? You know what I'm saying?
It's not even like
they had March Madness.
I don't know the number, but when you see the number, you're like, yo, it's ridiculous.
They had all the copyrights. They had March Madness. They had all the bowl games for the football game. So,
one of my buddies from Syracuse, he's got a business down in Birmingham. It's like an app. It's called Influencer, and it's basically like it's promoting kids to get out there and promote themselves, get on social media and brand yourself, and if you just allow the kids to do that and naturally make money like a business would, then we wouldn't have a problem. You wouldn't have to worry about paying, the field hockey team.
Yeah,
worry about the balance of who gets what money. Doesn't hurt the school budget,
exactly.
And the kids can still make a little extra money.
I mean, the idea that $45,000 or $50,000, in some cases maybe 60 or whatever, even, the idea that that's enough compensation for these kids' time, effort, and the amount of money they make the schools in the coach bonuses, which I'm going to get into too, the coaches' bonuses. The idea that all that's enough compensation for these student athletes, it is absurd. It's time to have some sort of...
And then there's rules. Then there's rules that say the coaches can't give the kids money.
Yeah, right? Well, the kids can't even get a job. They can't even deliver pizzas, bro. They can't do anything. So,
dude, the schedule of a D1 athlete is ridiculous. So, athlete, period. But
yeah, no, it is too, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of dedication, and maybe they don't have time to get jobs. They probably don't.
They spend their summers at school working out.
I know. But the point is, they couldn't if they wanted to. Is my point.
Right.
So, it's nothing to sit back in your dorm room, sign some jerseys or sign some cards, sell them for $20 a pop on eBay. The better you do, the more you make. Even if EA Sports gives each of them $100 to use their name and likeness, that's $100. They could either take it or leave it.
No, or they can. I mean, they would even be able to create their own little things, you know what I mean? Hey, we're gonna be here on this day, and they can promote themselves in the school out in the public. You know what I mean? You're promoting that. You're trying to spread the love, spread the fans, and you go out there and you sell autographs for $5. Like, who cares? Go out and down. They can't do that.
You know how much the NCAA made from TV broadcast rights and all that other crap? And it was distributed through the conferences and schools and stuff like that in a number of ways. But you know how much it was total? $857 million.
Yeah.
That's almost $1 billion. That was a year. A year.
You can't give these kids a little scratch?
You can't give them $10,000?
Or you can't allow them to just...
Or $5,000? I mean,
you're talking donut holes to donuts, man.
I know, and then there's the other way. There's the other way, which we'll get into, which I think Syracuse.com had an editorial on it. I think it's called the Olympic plan or something like that. How the better you do, you make the tournament. Like, you don't get paid anything to play a regular season, okay? But there's bonuses set in.
There's incentives to do good in the Olympics.
which is exactly how the coaches do it. For instance, Brad Brownell, Clemson's coach.
Yep.
He got last year, this past season, he got $20,000 for a number 4 seed in the ACC tournament, $20,000 for NCAA tournament bid, $20,000 for a first round win, and he got $20,000 for a second round win. So Brad Brownell, he got $80,000. Okay.
Just off bonuses.
Just for the postseason.
Right. And wouldn't it be nice if the players could compensate, or the coaches could compensate the players with their bonuses? Think about it. They did the work.
Yeah, they get a salary. You don't think the coaches would share their wealth
and
with the
that's
kids if they were allowed
a basketball team.
And I mean that's kind of a wonky
12,
way to do
13 scholarships.
Maybe the coaches don't get the big of a bit. Maybe the coaches say, "Hey, look, here's a recruiting idea. If I'm a recruiter and I'm a coach, I'm saying, hey, look, I want to be an advocate for player compensation in the postseason. I will happily hand off my bonuses equally distributed among my team.
Yeah.
If we can get something going in the postseason, that hurts nobody, right? Hurts nobody. I mean, they're making what was it? What's his name? Coach K. He made like what, $6 million last year with endorsements and all that stuff.
Right.
And
he doesn't need that little measly bonus.
Listen to Leonard Hamilton, Florida State. This is last year. 50,000 team wins at least 20 games. Okay, he got $50,000 for that. 200,000 NCAA tournament bid. 200,000. 50,000 back-to-back NCAA tournament bids. He got that. 50,000 for a first round win. 225,000 for a second round win, and he ended up getting Another $250,000 for a Sweet 16 win.
Ooh.
So what was that? Like $825,000 to Leonard Hamilton in bonuses. I mean,
everybody's.
Come on, I know
everybody's bonuses are different because those are personal coach bonuses.
I know.
Those are like in their contract. But
I know.
Come on, Florida State, you're really reaching.
Come on, that's ridiculous.
Well, they're giving them hell of incentive to do good. That's for sure.
No kidding. Like for instance, let's see, Syracuse University's cut will be about $2.3 million, and they're going to disperse that out over the next 6 years or so. So.
There's plenty of money lying around.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. That's a lot of money, and we just went over what the basketball team made SU just for being a basketball, just between ticket sales and running the dome and the food and the this and the that and the apparel and all this and that. What was it, like $16 or $19 million, something like that?
Yeah, there's a reason we're getting a dome renovation.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
No, we need it.
No, they do need it. They do need it. Do you want to do another one? Let's do John Calipari. Nothing.
Oh, God, here we go.
Nothing. No, he didn't get anything. I got more. You want to do more? You get the idea.
I get the idea.
You get the idea.
That's ridiculous.
It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
But...
I get it. I understand. Yeah, but, you got these kids that, a lot of these kids... And this is the way my stepdad explained it to me, and this is what made me really think about it, because I never really thought about it before. But a lot of these kids, they don't come from anything, man. They grew up with nothing, a lot of these kids. And a lot of them go to college on a scholarship, and they're getting a free education and some free sneakers. Well, that doesn't really do a whole lot for them on the weekends when it's time to hang out with their friends or spring break.
And they can't get money from their parents at home.
They can't get their moms and dads can't send them money and stuff like that. I mean, there's some situations where these kids, they just don't have access to cash and things like that. And they do get, you get fed from when you're on the road and stuff like that.
That's part of the budget.
And there's a lot of
food meals.
Yeah, there's a lot of perks. But
there are perks, absolutely.
And I'm not. It's not to say there's no perks, but there's,
But does it make up for what they have to do?
It does not make up for what they have to do. These schools, I just said, almost 800. What the heck was it? $857 million dispersed among most of these schools this past year, and that is $2.3 million just for Syracuse University on top of what they made. This year was a record-breaking year for revenue coming into Syracuse University from the basketball program. And it's time to pay the players. I'm not talking about a salary, but absolute.
Allowing them to be able to
sell their name
make
and likeness.
Money.
Let them
be able to brand themselves.
Let them brand themselves. Let them, name and likeness. Maybe the tourney earnings percentage. I think that's a great idea.
I'll tell you right now, you look at these kids for the whole year. You look at their schedule. If anybody actually digs deep and looks at it, does their homework, and I'm not talking schedule like class schedule. Everybody at school has class schedule. These D1 athletes, especially you don't think football, Alabama, you don't think they have a schedule like that is told to them what they do, where they need to be, Monday through Sunday.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
That sounds like a job to me.
It is a job. And listen, there was in 2016, Nigel Hayes. When he played for Wisconsin, he nearly boycotted a game in the early season. It was the Big Ten ACC Challenge, and it was against Syracuse. We lost that game, by the way. And by the way, that was our first episode ever, was after that game. And he was planning on boycotting that game, and he didn't. But I don't think boycotting a game or holding out in games. Look, when you sign with a school, and you got your scholarship and everything, you agree to that. So this stuff is for down the road. Unfortunately, we probably won't see this anytime soon. But boycotting is not a good way to do it, and that only hurts the fans. And fans will turn their backs quick, and it's not going to help. Trust me.
No, and it's not going to help the person either. That's a question that's going to come up with team interviews when you want to get drafted.
Exactly. So, there's ways to do it. I think we covered most of it and kind of shooting from the hip here a little bit.
I mean, it is what like I said, it's all about they care about how much money they're going to make.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't want to pay the players. They don't want to pay the players in college, and NBA doesn't want to allow them to go straight from high school. So what are they going to do? They're going to find the loopholes. They're going to go overseas and make money. Yeah. They're going to go to the G League. They're going to go to college and take money and possibly put that school's, their whole the way that people look at them, and the recruiting and everything like that. They could lose scholarships. I mean, they're hurting the teams, and they don't even care because they're just there because they have to be. So it's creating problems, and making more rules is just making it more difficult for the players that are the most talented. And realistically, like you said, a lot of these players that can go one and done and this and that, these are kids that are coming from not the greatest areas to where they're trying to make them and their families' lives better.
Some of these kids have overcome so much adversity.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, do you know how many guys are like a LeBron? I mean, they say some of the greatest players are out there on the streets. They just don't make it through the culture. Yeah. And the bottom line is that you have people like LeBron. I mean, it's a miracle.
How many lives has football saved? Think about it. Think about how many people's paths would be in such a different place if they didn't have the love of basketball and football
or anything. Sports, arts. I mean, you got to have a love and a passion for something to be able to block out everything negative. I mean, for every LeBron, there's 5 of them that don't make it. 4 of them that don't make it.
Probably even more than that.
Probably. I mean, I don't have the numbers, but you know what I'm saying. So I mean, to prohibit somebody in that situation to be able to rise above where they came from and be able to make it it's tough. It's tough. And it's both of them doing it just for their bottom line. And
the other argument against player compensation is that the football and basketball teams of these schools, they basically carry every other sport that is played at that school. I mean, you got the rowing team. I mean, hello, how much money is the rowing team making? How about none?
Negative.
Okay, so even women's basketball, it brings in a little bit of money, right? It has to a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't know what the net is on that, but that would be your next best besides football, basketball, and lacrosse. Yeah. Because lacrosse actually does okay.
Yeah.
So, I just say the rowing
There's
team.
so many. You can go to so many.
Exactly.
If
they're not.
And the whole thing is they have there's a rule there. I don't know, it's the Title IX rule in college where you have to have the same amount of sports teams for females and males at a college. So that always makes it difficult because if you want to add one for a male, you got to add one for a female. And I mean, like you said, football and basketball, the money, the revenue that they make from that, and now being in the ACC even more, like they're paying for that sport to be going on at the school.
Absolutely.
Like you're not at Syracuse getting that education for rowing if football and basketball aren't making that money, because they're not going to have that sport.
Exactly.
So,
and I mean, how else are they going to pay for it? Well, in the real world, I don't know. I guess it just doesn't survive. But you can't do that, or else you're, you can't just say, oh well, or else you're.
Well, that's again why we come back to the branding and being able to go out and make money, because now that takes away that argument, and again, it also says, hey. If you're a bench player and you're like, hey, I'm not making any money, it's like, well, hey, you have the opportunity. Go out there and brand yourself. It's on you.
Absolutely. And not only that, Joe, but the money that we're talking about, I'm sure some of this does go to help some of these other sports. But when we talk about $16 or $19 million in revenue from basketball being a season high for Syracuse, or a record high for Syracuse, it's a lot of that's going in there. So this stuff in the coaches' bonuses, I mean, we're talking about coaches' bonus. That doesn't go anywhere but the coach's pocket.
Right.
So, some of this stuff that we're suggesting wouldn't even affect that. So your argument is null. It's done.
Yeah, you can get rid of that.
Exactly. So, all right, well, how How about we talk some football real quick?
Yeah, and go to a better rule that NCAA came up with.
All right, tell us about it, Joe.
No, they changed the redshirt rule, so now a freshman can play up to 4 games in their freshman season, still redshirt. So that kind of that makes some changes, that allows players, if we're playing the Wagners or
test some stuff out.
Yeah, and also too, you always have those, I want to redshirt him, but we're not that deep. If this guy gets hurt, I gotta play him. Like, I don't know what to do. And now it's almost like if somebody gets hurt and they're out, you can almost play him. You can pull him up from the practice squad, like NFL, play him for a game. And then when the guy gets back, takes 1 week off and comes back the next week, then you don't play the guy, and you strategically play your freshman. And then there's a lot of times freshmen, they don't really start to, get it or understand it until, week 4, week 6, halfway through the season. So it changes the game a lot. For example, last year when Dungy got hurt, we could have had DeVito play 3 or 4 games. Instead of just having Mahoney go ahead and just play the rest of the season out because we couldn't play DeVito, and it would have kind of been a waste at that point because he was already going to be redshirted. You could have played Mahoney maybe 1-2 games, and then there would have been 4 games left. And you could have just thrown DeVito out there, got him experience, seen what he got. I mean, who knows? He could have got us to a bowl game. You never know. So that kind of example is something that it could do for, obviously, it's not going to do it for us this year because DeVito's already at his red shirt. But something like that, you see how that works, and it could happen with, multiple positions, obviously. So it's just interesting, and I really can't wait to see how it's going to change college football,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's a whole lot of stuff that's going to be interesting, both with football, I think, being underestimated in my opinion, and right. I'm not really good at I'm always optimistic, I guess, but I think it's going to be a fun year for football, and obviously we know what we got with basketball, and that's going to be awesome. So how about we talk about some 2019 recruits real quick? Wrap this up.
Yeah. Just to wrap it up, over the last 2 weeks, we've gotten 6 commitments, which obviously they're just verbal commitments. Signing day, I mean, we had the early signing period in December, and signing day is not until February 4th or 6th or something. So there's still a lot of time, obviously, but we are behind with all the other ACC teams. There's a lot of teams in double digits.
Well, tell everybody why you think that is, because you told me. And it made a lot of sense. I
think that he kind of went for some more higher-rated prospects this year.
Because people are always like, oh, why doesn't he go for higher-rated prospects?
No, they always do that. But, sometimes, I mean, everybody reaches out to these kids, obviously, but usually you can sniff it out and find out pretty good if you're nowhere in the hunt or nowhere in the run. So you kind of just move on. And I really think that it's not, obviously it doesn't look good now, but I think that the reason why we only have 6 recruits is because there's actually more of the 4-star and higher rated guys actually had interest in us for a longer period of time. So we're not just going after, these other guys, we're kind of still working at the big fish that still hasn't ruled us out yet. So, I mean, obviously we have till February. It's a long year, and a lot of players wait to see what happens. And there's a lot of other players that, obviously make their name. I mean, these kids for 2019 still got to play a senior year of high school football for Christ's sakes, so
yeah,
we got a long time.
Let's start. Let's start with 6 foot 170 pound safety Cornelius Nunn.
Cornelius Nunn is by far probably the best one that we've gotten so far. He had a huge recruiting sheet. His offer sheet includes Alabama, Georgia, Nebraska, Auburn, Miami. He's from Miami. He's a Florida boy, and again, like I said, it's a long time. It's a long time till signing day. But if he's already got offers from these big schools and he's still picked us, sometimes kids will pick smaller teams to make other teams kind of move. Maybe bigger teams move on them. But he's already been recruited by the bigger teams, so
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think Babers is doing a good job because, real quick, I'm not trying to interrupt this thing, but
no, you're good. Go ahead.
I think Babers has just got the charisma and the personality. I think he's a likable guy. I mean,
he definitely is.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, who wouldn't want to play for the guy? I mean, he treats these kids with an enormous amount of respect, and he's just a class act. So
he's had a viral speech every year that he's coached, and he's been on ESPN multiple times. Yeah. A lot more than Scott Schaefer and Doug Marrone were.
Yeah, and Scott Schaefer was a good coach. And both of them.
Doug Marrone. Yeah, Doug Marrone's in the NFL doing really good with the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. So
yeah. All right. 5 foot, 10 inch, 160 pound cornerback Adrian Cole.
Another Miami boy. This kid from some of the homework that I've done, looking on the internet, is one of those kids where he doesn't really have a lot of experience, so he's still unrated through recruiting services and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure he camped with Syracuse, and he's just one of those kids that, being in the Miami area, sometimes there's so much talent that you are kind of behind the 8 ball, and you don't really get to be seen until your senior year. And I think Syracuse has liked what they saw and think he's the guy that's going to end up kind of shining and having a great senior season and eventually see his recruitment blow up. So they kind of want to strike first while the name's still kind of cold.
Yeah. 6 foot 3 inch, 210 pound linebacker Joffrey Canton Arku. This is another guy that's a Canadian guy. And Babers, he talked about trying to. A Canadian, He's from Quebec City, he likes the little bats, I don't know if he's old enough for little bats. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Syracuse, they got 2 other guys from Canada that they've recruited over the past 2 years, and it's one of those untapped areas where you really don't know. A lot of times they don't get recruited that highly. For instance, Osei Brissett for Syracuse is from Canada, right. And he wasn't that highly ranked in.
I know, look at him.
Yeah, and look at him. Yeah, he wasn't even ranked in the top 50, and it was because of where he played, because he played in Canada. So we got a couple guys past couple years, and this is just another one. 6'3", 210. So obviously he's got room in a frame to get bigger. And the one thing that I know that the coaches like about the Canadian kids too is that the way their school system goes is usually by the time when they come in as freshmen, they're already 19 years old. So you're talking about possibly having a kid that's 23, 24 years old if they redshirt. Then you really can't put a long-term price tag on that. So it's one of those things where we're kind of just going to have to wait and see because obviously he's kind of unrated and not really known too much. But he went to the Syracuse camp last weekend, and they liked what they saw. So they threw a scholarship out there, and he pulled the trigger.
How about this guy? I like this guy. 6'4", 210 pound. They got him listed as a tight end. Luke Benson. Also,
a D end.
A defensive end, yeah.
Right.
And he did a good job, too.
Oh, yeah. 52 tackles?
Yeah, 15 for a loss.
15 for a loss.
6 sacks. Yeah, 2 caused fumbles. I think that's pretty awesome.
That's all per Syracuse.com, but yeah, I'll take their word for it. You never know. He's obviously athletic, and again, it's one of those guys, 6'4", 210, just like the guy before, 6'3", 210. He's got room to grow, so it just all depends on.
I like that. I like that frame on a tight end.
Well, you know what? What I also like is obviously it gives him the. He can play defensive end or tight end, right? Yeah. So he kind of gives him the versatility to come in and wherever he fits.
Yeah, and obviously he knows how to play defensive end. So
he definitely does.
It's pretty good. All right, 6 foot, 4 pound, 265 defensive tackle Joe Rondi.
Yep, this guy is another one that Syracuse jumped on early. From what I've read and from Syracuse.com as well, that I've seen in other other multiple sources that defensive tackle is really not deep this year in the high school pool. So getting a guy like this early on, especially when you think that his recruitment's going to blow up during his senior year, we are not really going to know the effects because right now on paper, obviously, it doesn't look great. But there's a lot of talk with, again, with the article on Syracuse.com and others that this kid is he's kind of ready to rise above, and they're saying he's going to have a great year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of those guys that I'm worried about his recruitment blowing up and
decommitting.
Decommitting, yeah. So
yeah. There's always a chance of that still. We're going through these.
Well, I'm worried because of the depth of the D tackles. Yeah, the less the depth, then the more, and if he rises, then
he will rise,
figure he's going to, and the Power 5 conferences, other Power 5 conferences teams are going to come.
Right. All right, we'll wrap it up with 6'4", 283-pound offensive lineman Anthony Redd. It's a giant man right there.
Oh, that is. And if you read the article of Syracuse.com, they talked about why they offered him and why they're so excited about him because he actually shocked the coaches when they saw him. I don't know exactly what year it was, but according to the Syracuse.com article with Stephen Bailey, the first time the Syracuse coaches saw the kid, he was 6'5", playing between 225, 230. And when he showed up to Syracuse camp, he was 270 and eventually got to 290. And so, right now he's around 6'5", 290. And, you're talking about gaining 60 pounds in, 1-2 years. And he's talking about trying to get up to 300, 305, but a fit 300 to 305. So
yeah, muscles, yeah.
Right. So this, again, just seems like a guy that they saw and they felt they had to pull the trigger no matter what his star rating is. And this is normal. You have the kids that can go to these Under Armour camps and these Nike camps and these Scout.com camps, 24/7 Rivals, you name it. You got kids that have the means to go to these places, and then you have kids that don't. So what you do have is you have schools like this that have camps and hold camps during the summer that are a lot less inexpensive, and a lot of times the high school coaches will bring a group or multiple players from their team to these camps so that they can be seen by these other coaches. And, it doesn't matter what star rating it is next to their name. These coaches are seeing these kids with their eyes, and if they like what they see and they offer the kid a scholarship, I'm not going to go by what 247 Sports or somebody else does. You got to trust what they're doing, and I 100% trust Dino Babers right now. So
yeah, I love.
And a lot of times,
Dino Babers right now, I think he's.
And a lot of times, these guys that they end up getting this early that are unrated end up turning into a 3-star anyway. So at the end of the day, it's not. You always get these kids early, especially right after our team holds these camps, and then you get these fans that want to be negative and say, "Oh, no stars, this and that."
Yeah, I don't pay attention to that, man. Like you said, I trust the recruiting team. I trust Dino Babers, and the same goes for basketball. So, we'll see. It's going to be interesting, I think.
No, if they're not highly rated, but they go to camp and in person, they're dominating, and these coaches like what they see, and they offer them a scholarship.
Right. Right. What are you going to do?
Are you going to trust a website that maybe just hasn't seen this kid, or are you going to trust your eyes right before you?
Right. So. Exactly. So, all right. Well, that's pretty much it for the recruits. We're going to do.
I got one more.
Oh, you do? Okay, go ahead.
I do.
What do you got?
Well, this is a little quick one. It's also, it's a recruit because it's a big one because Dwayne Johnson, not The Rock.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
He was the number 8 cornerback in the junior college rankings, and out from junior college out in, I think, Western Arizona, something like that. When he first came out of high school, he committed to Virginia Tech, actually, and then he ended up not enrolling he didn't end up playing there, went to junior college, and he decided to commit to us as well. But the difference is he's not part of the 2019 class because he's coming from junior college. He's part of this year's class, so he's going to be able to immediately push for playing time, and it was a big get for us. a big get because
Yep.
I think the guy's going to end up helping a lot.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, how many days, Joe?
I don't know, but August 31st.
Okay, August 31st.
August 31st, 6 p.m. at Western Michigan.
There you
and
go.
I'm going to be
Joe,
at a
Joe will
damn
be at
wedding.
a wedding. All right, so we'll come back. We'll do a football preview and
A wedding with earbuds in.
Yeah, that's how I would do it too. I don't blame you. It's just not the same when you DVR because then you got to avoid everybody.
Dude,
You
yeah,
know?
I wouldn't be watching it until September 4th. So I'm already going to know.
So, all right. Once again, hey, we're gonna get back here probably. We're gonna do a football preview, but we're gonna get back here before then and
We're going to try.
We're trying to do 2 episodes a month. It's really what I would like to do. So, we'll see. We'll do it as news breaks. And, of course, I'd like to thank, once again, Armchair All-Americans for giving us a shot, putting us under their banner. Hopefully,
Yes, sir.
Hopefully we can make them proud and grow this thing and, just see what happens. So it's a good thing to happen in the offseason, get it squared away. And, once again, Brandon Buskey has a little preview on Joe Girard that I just...
Oh, yeah, he had his official visit the other day, or this weekend, right?
That's right. So, unfortunately, we forgot to mention that earlier. But, hey, it's on all the social sites, Twitter, Facebook.
Never too late.
And that's about it. But, anyway, all right, we'll get back here as soon as news breaks. We'll be
Yes,
here.
sir.
Remember, please subscribe. That helps us out more than ever now. And it helps us get recognized. If you can give us a 5-star, we'd appreciate that too. And a review, it would be the icing on the cake. Really appreciate it. So that's it. For Joe, I'm Sean. We're out.
Peace.
This has been the Cuse Militia Podcast with Sean and Joe. Be heard. Contact us on Facebook at Cuse Militia Podcast and tweet at us using #CuseMilitia.